there's no end to how much they could scale with Facebook ads. A lot of times the limitation, Sasha, let me tell you, is the law firms, whether they can even handle this many number of clients that Meta ads could generate. For the most part, I've seen that there's a thing called the red ocean, which is red ocean is where everybody is competing with each other. Usually the costs are just inevitably go up, where it gets to a point where even I would say the good chunk of those people that are running those ads, they're just not tracking their numbers and they're actually losing money running those ads. The business isn't your entire life. Your business is supposed to just help you and enable you to have a better life, be a better family person, do good in your community, do things that you enjoy doing. So it's just an enabler of everything else in your life.
I can't even say that from which law firm or from which brand you are, because you have started and successfully run so many different legal companies. I think the tally is now 6, and the 7th one is in the making. Your numbers are astonishing. I think you've been at it for about 10 years. Most people can barely like keep up with their one law firm, but here you are, still a young guy, under 40, 3 kids, incredibly successful, 6 law firms, and another company that's adjacent to these law firms that you have started, a successful company and so on. How do you have time to do this?
A lot of systems, a lot of understanding myself, leaning to my strengths, and then surrounding myself with my complementary people that could fill in the rest. But I think a lot of it comes down to just being strategic and smart about my time. I don't work 40 hours a week. I think I probably average right now between 25 hours, 30 hours a week, most, if that. But I also spend a lot of time on weekends to work, to think as much as possible. And I also use a lot of AI and ChatGPT to figure out exactly what to do and how to do it strategically. And also, at the same time, the other nuance is I'm not the day-to-day operator. I'm not running these law firms myself. I'm not involved with the day-to-day. So I don't deal with clients. I don't deal with prospects. I don't deal with the issues that come up on a daily basis. I deal mostly with the COOs and the directors that are operating these law firms. And those are my day-to-day interactions, is kind of behind the scenes, marketing, automations, and working with the directors to help them grow the firms.
Yeah, it's interesting. I often in conversations when people say like more money equals freedom, I correct them. I'm like it doesn't have to equal freedom. Your proper org chart equals freedom. Not having more money does not. I've seen lawyers who make millions of dollars and they have no time to enjoy a single one of those dollars. Incredibly busy. You've built it right.
Yeah, and ultimately it's not about generating more money. It's I would say foremost control. Mine is control, which is like control/time. And then second is profit, which I've been exposed to so many different law firm owners where they're making a lot, but they're not keeping much. So that's a lot of times comes down to understanding your numbers. And I know these are the things that you always talk about, Sasha, understanding your numbers and knowing where you are and your P&Ls and all that stuff. Yeah, that's where it's at. But ultimately control of your life. And also realizing that it's just a business. Ultimately, the business isn't your entire life. Your business is supposed to just help you and enable you to have a better life, be a better family person, do good in your community, do things that you enjoy doing. So it's just an enabler of everything else in your life.
I love the way that you look at it. And also you sound so humble, but to add to the numbers that you've already shared. So you work 25 to 30 hours a week. I love that you said that you spend a lot of your time on thinking, because I find that thinking for an executive of any type of business is the most valuable and earned right. Like you have to have that org chart to earn the right to do the thinking for work. Most people haven't earned that right. That's why they're busy practicing law or operating a business, because they haven't earned the right to think most of the time. It's hard to earn that right because you have to know how to build that org chart. But here's what I find fascinating. So 25 to 30 hours a week, yet across 6 of your brands, people, not you, but people, sign up between 1,000 and 1,200 cases per month. This is nearly unheard of under leadership of one person within 10 years, actually probably less than 10 years, since you really started building your law firms as in plural. How did you scale up so quickly? And if you were speaking to hundreds of law firm owners who may be in awe of these numbers right now, which I bet overwhelming majority of our listeners or viewers or readers are thinking this is impossible and I want to know how this guy did it. So what's the most practical advice you can give?
So actually, it's over 10 years in the making now, which even sounds crazy for me. Like it's been 10 years already. It flies by really fast. 10 years in the making. I started off in the first couple of years. I literally had less than $2,000 to my name for like 2 to 3 years. Essentially, started from the ground up. No outside funding, no money from my parents, and literally had to grind. Learned to tell myself how to do SEO, how to create a website. So my first kind of clients came from SEO. Then once that started rolling, I started getting into learning about Google Ads and started spending that money that I was making from SEO, rolled into Google Ads, started making money from that, scaled that up, and then got into the world of sales funnels, which really kind of put some fire to it. Then I got into the world of YouTube, did that for some couple of years. Then I got into the world of Facebook ads, and I've been kind of in the Facebook ads world for the last 5 years. Then about 4 years ago, I got into TikTok ads, then YouTube ads. And it's just been the same principle, which is understand what these platforms, how it works, what it takes to run successful ads, track everything to the dollar to know exactly where my leads, qualified leads, and clients are coming from, exactly from what source, what campaigns, what ad sets, and what ads, and be able to track it and be able to consistently every single week know where my clients are coming from so I could spend more in those places and have a very kind of trackable, dependable way to know exactly what's my cost per acquisition and be able to increase my budgets where it's profitable. And that recipe, this kind of framework has been able to help me get to spending $1 million a month on ads. Now kind of downsized to about I want to say $600,000 a month. But it's just the framework is the same as I did from day one, which is, know where my clients are coming from, know my numbers, and be able to spend money in the profitable places.
So very interesting. I think everyone's minds are like heads are spinning as they listen to this. So you go from SEO to Google Ads after you started making money from SEO. Then you go into YouTube. Then you learn about sales funnels. Does all of those I don't know what you call those discs from sales funnels, but they are discs from sales. Yeah, your awards. Thank you, from sales funnels. And a very interesting.
We're on the ground too, but I feel like when I move into the next place, I feel like these are going to be the thing of the past. I'm just going to move on. So I think that was a nice little period of my life where I could be proud of these, but I could eventually move on.
It appears that investment has paid off handsomely. And as you learned sales funnels, you have moved on to social media advertising. And if I understood you correctly, all of your advertising today is tied to a few social media platforms, correct?
Correct. At this point, 99% meta ads, which is basically Facebook and Instagram ads. And just a year and a half ago, I was running ads on 4 different platforms, which is meta ads, TikTok ads, YouTube ads, and Google ads. And over time, I realized, it depends on practice types, but for the most part, I've seen that there's a thing called the red ocean, which is red ocean is where everybody is competing with each other. Usually the costs are just inevitably go up, where it gets to a point where even I would say the good chunk of those people that are running those ads, they're just not tracking their numbers and they're actually losing money running those ads. Like a good chunk, I want to say like even 1/3 of people that I think that are running, let's say Google ads, are actually losing money. They just don't realize it. So over time, because I have such clarity about where's my highest ROI, and I applied the framework of spend more money where more money can be made, I've been essentially focused on meta ads most. It's more of a blue ocean. It's a lot more scalable. Either the market is bigger, and it just also it's a little bit more creative friendly. Where if you're a creative person, that could be it's something that could work to your strengths. and it's just been more fun. Kind of Google is kind of like feels like limited, capped, saturated, versus Meta. It's kind of scalable, fun, and just something that you could kind of scale across different practice types.
I would argue that Meta is also incredibly saturated with ads, period. So when you're scrolling through Facebook or Instagram,
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think it's saturated amongst the average media buyers.
correct.
People that are either think they know what they're doing, or they're doing
Yeah.
it typical way, or they're hiring typical vendors. But the very successful people there's no end to how much they could scale with Facebook ads. A lot of times the limitation, such let me tell you, is the law firms, whether they can even handle this many number of clients that Meta ads could generate. Meta ads, in my experience, has never been capped by Meta ads. It's always been the law firm. This is law firm systems that can handle as much as Meta can provide.
But also geographic limitations.
Yes.
Competition, because practice dependent, right? For different practice areas, this would work very differently. But this also applies to Google. There's always a limit to what you can squeeze out of any market. It's natural. If there are 1,000 cases in your market in any given month, you're not going to get 1,001 cases, even if you own the whole thing.
For sure. And let me just give like one secret little way. Meta ads doesn't all work for just targeting your city. They're just way too small and limited. So minimum has to be state-based, and ideally state-based, kind of like default, if not multi-state, and if not national.
Yeah. We're not going to reveal all of your secrets, but like this works incredibly well when you can hit a region or greater geographical market. So it doesn't work for every practice area, for every law firm, but for some. And success leaves a lot of clues. So if you're really curious minded, you could start digging and see how people can be very successful on the social media platforms. And speaking of success, what do you average, if you don't mind sharing, your average case acquisition cost? Like on social, on Meta specifically, what does it cost on average across all of your practice years, across 6 law firms? What's the average case acquisition cost as a percentage?
The factors are one practice type, and as you said, one market. From what I'm seeing, across doing this across 20, 30 different practice types, different campaigns, all that stuff, minimum is going to cost $300. That's like best case scenario.
What's the percentage of the case value?
What do you mean by percentage?
So let's say that if your average case value is like $5,000 to the firm, what percentage of that 5,000 would you invest to get it?
If it's a $5,000 case, for me, let's just say I'm willing to spend up to $1,500.
Got it. One third.
That's my cap, but sometimes even more than that. And then that's just a marketing cost. And you also obviously have the operation cost. Obviously, then you need to be very clear on what's your cost, marketing cost per acquisition, and your what we call essentially it's operating cost per sign up. So let's just say you sign up 10 clients a month, and it costs $1,000 to generate those. It costs $1,000 to generate each of those 10 clients. So let's just say it's $1,000 cost acquisition. Well, there's also the cost to operate and serve those clients. So let's say that's another $500. So that's a total cost of $1,500 per total sign up. And then on the back end, if you're making $3,000 or more, well, you still get profitable for $1,500. So those are the things you kind of have to look at. But yeah, the kind of rule of thumb is like 1/3 up to 1/3 in marketing is usually okay. Then probably another 1/3 or so, maybe in operation. Then the rest hopefully is.
And when you say operation, you're actually speaking about the direct cost of service. Like this is what it cost you to deliver the service that was promised through marketing, delivered through promised by intake, and that's delivered by the actual people who do the job.
Pretty much, it's all other expenses, including your salary and everybody's salary and the office and everything else.
Yeah. So this is a huge part of your success. You are able to invest up to 30% or 33% on acquiring those cases because your cost of service is so low.
Up to.
Up to.
Necessarily you want to pay.
You don't want to, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes we got on ROI as high as 800%, 900%, which is like unicorns. At that point, you're printing money. You want to spend as much money as you possibly can. And we've been at those stages where we went balls out, spending close to $1 million a month in ads, and want to take advantage of the opportunity as much as possible because that usually lasts a couple of months. maybe a little bit more, and then things level off, and then now you gotta figure out what to do next.
I got to give you a couple of examples that will kind of not invalidate what you say, but will go against what you said as far as unicorns go. So we have numerous clients who routinely make 8 to 10x on their marketing investment. And here's how it usually works. So if you're in a very competitive market, but your practice area is not very competitive, for example, you can be in New York City, that's smack in the middle of Manhattan, which is incredibly competitive for law firms, but your practice area is uncommon, but there is substantial demand and your case value is high. For example, high-end medical malpractice. You're not going to have many law firms that specialize in that. Your average case value will be well into 7 figures, and your return on marketing investment will be more than 10x. Or alternative to that, if you practice family law in a smaller market, not New York City, but Spokane, Washington, for example, there aren't that many competitors yet. Plenty of divorces still happen. And you're going to have return on marketing investment of also over 10x. But for everything else, we always talk to our clients like the target is 15%, 20% is acceptable, 25% is your max. And here's why. Most of our clients are not optimized as your brands, as your law firms. You have really perfected the offshoring model where most of your labor is offshore. Thus, you can deliver that service for a third of revenue, whereas most law firms are fortunate when they're looking at their P&L, profit and loss statement, and they're like, we're spending 50% on our labor. So if you're spending 35% or 33% acquiring those cases and you spend 50% on your labor, you're working for the sake of working. There's no profit left.
Correct. It's essentially a nonprofit organization.
It's a nonprofit organization.
The public service company, which is like, we're doing good for the community, but,
I love it.
that happens
all the time.
We'll be surprised how many law firms are essentially a public service company where, fortunately, the lawyer is the last person who makes money from this venture, and they're the ones that are working the hardest. And it doesn't need to be the case.
Yeah. I do have an admission to make. Yeah, I do have an admission to make. So I'm laughing about this, but my partner and I routinely check our cost of service. And we cannot lower it beyond 47%. So we're nearly at that 50%. And we have 2 production offices that are based in Eastern Europe, but delivering high quality service in the marketing business for lawyers is a very expensive game to be in. Sure. You have to have very smart people onshore or offshore, and you have to pay them well to keep them. And it requires a lot of labor to deliver substantial results.
For sure. Especially as you're saying, that especially if you're trying to deliver actual results. Unfortunately, the market that we're in, Sasha, is most of the companies are just churn and burn. They're just trying to make money, short-term money, not focusing enough time on building up a good team and driving actual results. Maybe they'll bring, some of these vendors and companies will bring you, generate your results for the first couple of months or 2, and then they'll move on to the next client. Yeah. Very rare to find that good long-term, from marketing company who is willing to, play the long-term game, build a good team, and do it successfully.